kicked out of my near every bar around. I've been locked up for driving 120 through town. I've been shot at and cut with a knife, messing around with another man's wife. But other than that, we ain't nothing, just good old boys. Threw my boss out the window and got fired from my last job. Hot-wired a city truck and turned it over in the mayor's yard. Paid my brother-in-law half to death. Lost $20 on his football bet. But other than that, we ain't nothing, just good old boys. Good old boys, we're all the same. Ain't no way we'll ever change. Ain't no harm by the things we do, or the trouble that we get into.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Wade and Carter Show, Friday. I'm Ash. He's Brent. Welcome to the show. The commander's over there.
Commander's over there. Did you hear the commander while ago sharing his bodily functions? We were talking to the Honorable A.J. Louderback, State Rep, House District 30, and he was just like hacking. And you know those
bring
people,
his mic up
like,
right away.
so Dawn is one of those people that doesn't understand the purpose of a sneeze. Like, the purpose of a sneeze is to expel whatever is bothering your nasal cavity. Dawn's one of those people, she sneezes.
Keep it all in.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, you didn't accomplish anything, you know? Commander's one of those guys that, I mean, he's like trying to roto-root everything out of that nasal passage.
Get it out of there.
That's right.
Unbelievable, this guy.
Sarah Elkins in, Greg Garcia, Ricky King on the podium this morning. Good morning, everybody. Wade and Carter Weather brought to you with the great folks at AT Deerland Hay Feed and Ranch Services. Still not too late to get all your onions and potatoes from them, and your seeds for all your gardening needs this spring. They've got you covered.
70 degrees and cloudy in Victoria. Not Michael cloudy, just cloudy.
It will be later, though.
It will be. With a high of 92. Now, did it reach 90 yesterday?
I don't know if it did.
I don't
think so, but it was nice.
The longest day of my life was a track meet.
At least you weren't freezing.
Port Lavaca. No, it was not. Let's look at air quality. Do you have any air quality? Look,
No.
Chance of participation, it's flatline. It's like
nothing.
Joe Biden's pulse.
Congrats to Zed and LaShare, big winners at Wade and Carter Bingo Night last night.
Man, the Wade and Carter crew, and hats off to them.
What a good crew last night.
And hats off to Palace Bingo.
It was like Dodger Stadium, though. We got there, and there were like 6 of us. Then all of a sudden, they filled in.
Did Junior show up?
Oh, he was the first one there.
How was Linda?
Tolerant.
Yeah, I was going to say, did she look tired?
She's married to Junior.
That's what I meant.
It's
It's 100% what I was going with. Bless her heart.
Hey, Goliad Rodeo Sunday. I got 4 tickets. Who wants them? Comment or call 361-894-4020.
You can sit with us, and it's always fun to see Ash all duded up. He'll probably wear a hat, and he'll probably wear
I don't always wear a
a
cowboy hat.
denim jacket.
No, it's gonna be way too hot.
Do you have any of those fancy cowboy boots that are like ostrich or white?
He does have some ostrich.
I do have a nice pair of Lucchese ostrich boots.
Yes, he and I share. I have also the same pair, bought independently.
Y'all share the pair.
We didn't Twinkie in there, but it's that ostrich belly. It's the part.
It's not the full.
It's not full quill,
which I like.
which Dawn doesn't like, and I wish she did because they're a lot less expensive than the Cayman that I
don't like the
going
full,
to buy.
full quill.
You don't?
No, I like. The
I'll tell you
ones
what,
I
these
have.
are super
Less.
soft.
They're a little less. They're a little more understated.
Well, that's you. You're understated.
I don't like the Cayman either.
You're very understated. You don't like the Cayman.
No,
Well, I
never got into the.
I've made a note, but they're very expensive.
Yeah, I never got into the rattlesnake boots back in the.
No,
90s either.
rattlesnake or sea bass.
Yeah.
What is that? You see that all the time. It's got that big that big diamond shape on it. Read our list there. Good morning, I know that Judge Posey's in. Good morning, our dear friend.
Stephanie Connie, Jarrett McCrugen, Ed Stewart, Junior Samples, Tammy Williams, Scott Snow, Andrew Alvarez. He'll be in San Antonio this weekend.
He's a featured speaker in Baytown on the 3rd at the Republican Women's Meeting.
Running for Senate.
Awesome.
Sherry Jacobs, Monty Howard, good morning. Tamara Studer, Heather Stewart, counting down the days till the kids are on spring break. Tammy Keeling, Janie Alvarez, Justin Glass, Michelle Hawkins. Good morning. Bobby Leister, BJ Nelson, Ryan Hopping, Mark Zapata, Rennie Langston, Linda Chris, Lisa Poole, David Glass, Mark Kurtz, Scott Tomko, Ricky King. We got those guys already. So there we go.
You know, BJ Nelson says
Micah Patton.
Doge is alive and well. We're going to get with the congressman on some of these things, but folks, the stuff that we used to make up to be sarcastic, it's all real. You know, gender studies in Pakistan among transgender mice. I mean, you could like, you know, those deals you pick one of these, pick one of these, pick one of these and make a phrase. Okay. Homophobic general studies, Congo, young boys. I mean, just pick one and the national or the
It's like they take those little paper
money.
Things that you used to go on.
Yes.
Or open it up. Oh, there's the thing.
And there it is. It is unbelievable.
I could never make those.
The money, I could never make those things work either. The Chinese finger things. Is that xenophobic to say that?
I don't think so.
Yes, you can't say that.
I wondered.
But we are 5 years to the week that the World Health Organization declared the pandemic, that COVID was here. And
we've been telling you the truth about it since about day 3. We kind of took a second, looked at the big picture and called BS on most of it 5 years ago this week. True story.
Yeah. And even though the World Health Organization hid it, delayed telling the world about it.
Scott Tomko says he's poor. He got catfish boots.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're waterproof.
I don't know why.
What does that mean? You had a relationship with boots that didn't really exist?
My brain says, Clarice.
It was a dark night. We were cold.
Clarice. I don't
Adam
know.
Daughtry, good morning.
You're just one generation removed from white trash.
So it looks like the astronauts are going to come home.
Are these the ones that Elon's going to get?
Sonny Williams, Butch Wilmore. No, I think NASA this time.
Snooney. It's Snooney Williams.
Yeah. The Boeing Starliner. Got him there. Couldn't go back. Couldn't get him back.
Boeing. Boy, they've had a bad run.
But yeah, I guess NASA and SpaceX heading up there tonight. Although I think they were supposed to go yesterday in weather, actually. Through a kink in that plan, but they'll arrive back at the international or at the
and no humor here, but is that they're going on a more tested platform? The other ones, the rockets that blew up recently were
test rockets,
new rockets. Yeah. I remember reading when I was a kid back, you start to reach certain ages and you realize, well, there's just things I won't be. I'll never, I remember when I said, I'll never be a professional athlete. I'll never be a fireman. I'll never be an astronaut. Things that you respected and looked up to as a kid. I'll never, there's a lot of things I'll never be now at my age. But I remember reading an astronaut who said, look, all we are is test pilots. I said, there's been, relatively speaking, so few manned rocket flights that every flight is a test flight. And when a lot of these guys were accomplished fighter pilots.
Yeah.
And they're like, when you're used to putting your life on the line, you accept that risk. There is no guarantee. It is not safe. So, prayers for them. I feel bad. I can't imagine. Put yourself in that capsule and try to figure how claustrophobic you would be when you said, I'm in a holding pattern. Let's ration our food a little bit. Let's kind of watch what we eat and how much water we consume, because we don't know how long we're going to be here. That would just be very cringe, to use the hip hop terminology. To use mine, the brevity of words, it would suck.
In reading some articles on this, I guess 9 months is not an extraordinarily long time in the space station. That's a typical mission. It's just there's 2 extra astronauts there instead of the 7. There's 9, and has been since they got stuck there.
You think they're playing some spin the bottle up there? Honey, I thought I was gonna die. Right? You find that deal. You know, you ever play that game in your head? So, like, you know, you end up you're on a cruise ship. You end up stranded on an island with a beautiful woman, but you're married. You're happily married, but you think your wife has died, and you know it's like, how long do you wait before you have sex with the beautiful woman on the beach? And you know, so you finally give in, and then they show up and they go, "It's been 3 hours. I mean, you were only here for 3 hours. Why did you do that?" I don't know. 3 hours is a long time when people grieve differently. You know, I thought you were gone, honey. Just didn't want to be alone.
I did it for the kids.
Right.
A 3-hour.
That's exactly right. Ginger and Marianne Mrs. Howell starts looking pretty good after a couple of months.
Kathleen Langer asked if we see what's happening in the Texas legislature. Dade Phelan, who's earned the moniker Drunk Dade, has introduced a bill to criminalize political memes, House Bill 366.
Dade needs to grow up and shut up. You can't you can't criminalize. That's freedom of speech.
Would make it a crime to distribute altered media, including political memes, without a government-approved disclaimer.
There's your key phrase.
Year in jail.
Government approved. Government approved means somebody's trying to take away one of your rights.
And it's there. House Bill 366 was filed. It's left pending in committee. My guess is this thing won't ever get out.
It'll never get. Nah.
Yeah.
All it is him admitting that he's got thin skin and somebody hurt his feelings and he's mad at somebody.
Somebody made a Dade Phelan.
Yeah. You enter the public realm as a politician, get ready to be part of a meme.
Yeah. Which gets me to another point, and I you know, our president, your president, my president,
Mark, what's his name?
No, that's the prime minister.
Oh, that's your prime,
He's
which is bigger than the.
Yeah, I'm talking Donald J. Trump.
Here in America, one of your many citizenships.
Yeah, I'm talking Donald J. Trump.
Sure.
Got mad earlier this week at Thomas Massey, the representative from Kentucky, because Thomas says, I'm not voting for your continuing resolution. And he never has voted for one. And Trump on Truth Social and everywhere else, I'm going to primary you. I'm going to primary you. I have a problem with this.
Tell me. You don't like him threatening other legislators?
No, for voting their constituents the way their constituents want him to vote.
Yeah,
and
sticking
to his morals and his values.
But you know, LBJ.
You want to talk about being a dictator? That's as close to being a dictator as you can get.
That's politics. LBJ was famous.
Okay, Mao Zedong.
Hey, he didn't say I'm going to kill you. He didn't like Putin say.
Mao didn't either at first. He just told you got to walk the walk and talk the talk.
What's the name of that security outfit in Russia? The big one.
KGB?
No. The one that was supposedly guarding Moscow when the troops kind of changed direction and took over the embassy or whatever. Come on.
I don't remember
FSB?
now.
Remember the guy died on a plane and Putin goes, well, he made some bad choices. Yeah. That's not what Trump's doing here. LBJ was famous for grabbing people with his fingertips by the buttons of their button-down collared shirt and pulling them in. You know, LBJ just had coffee and ciggy breath, and he was a big, imposing man, and he would pull you in and go, I got your support on this one, don't I, Ash? Don't I? I mean, this is an act as old as time. Now, I don't think that the president, I don't think LBJ should have done it, and I don't think the president should be threatening lawmakers by saying, I'm gonna primary you. I'll put somebody in there that'll do what I want them to do.
Congressman Thomas Massey of beautiful Kentucky is an automatic no vote on just about everything, despite the fact that he has always voted for continuing resolutions in the past. He should be primaried, and I will lead the charge against him.
Well, you know, that sounds like the guy that I knew here who will not be mentioned by name, who told me straight to my face
He's
I
just
can
another,
replace any county commissioner for $15,000, and for 25, I can replace the county judge.
Brother Gary wouldn't say that.
No, Brother Gary didn't say that, but you know exactly who I'm talking about, and I'm not going to mention his name on the air, but I was there.
he's just another grandstander who's too much trouble and not worth the fight. He reminds me of Liz Cheney.
See, that's the ultimate put down from Trump. By the way, you don't hear much about Liz Cheney. Wow.
No.
You also don't hear.
And I don't believe Massey has ever voted for a continuing resolution. So I have problems with that.
The other
They're
thing,
trying to get people in line.
just to let you know how committed the left is. Yeah, Wagner, the Wagner Group. Thank you, Johnny Houghton.
There you go.
Ash doesn't pay attention to the news. Think about when you talk about how important things are. You know, they're on this Khalid Mahmoud deal, and they're on
Khalid.
Doge, whatever his name is, Khalid with the towel, send him
Khalid.
home. What they don't talk about anymore, because it's not popular, you don't ever hear the left mention diversity. They never mention diversity anymore. They have not one time since it was all confirmed, not once, Ash, has the left mentioned the lack of diversity in Donald Trump's cabinet. It's a bunch of white people. They haven't done that. Now, of course, it's not. It's not. Scott Turner's a black gentleman for housing and urban development. You see how I remembered that name? Tulsi Gabbard, she may be a lot of things. I don't think she's white.
Cash Patel.
She's as African-American as Kamala Harris.
She's as African-American as Elizabeth Warren is Native American.
Yeah. Elizabeth Warren looking for reparations. So there you have it. Should we take a break?
Yeah, we need to take
So
a break.
listen,
We
folks,
didn't get the one yesterday.
Ash made a great comment yesterday, and I want to echo it. We are so fortunate. I don't have my screen. See, we are so fortunate to
Let me
literally
fix
be
that for you real
blessed
quick.
with the sponsors that we have that understand. I mean, people like, so BJ Nelson's listening, and she was listening yesterday. The folks at White Trash Services and White Trash Site Services, they understand that they didn't get a specific plug yesterday because they are great to just help provide this forum. So if you need trash service, or if you need a dumpster to clean out a garage for the spring, it's going to be a beautiful weekend. It's a great weekend to get off the sofa, get outside, and go ahead and clean up that garage. White Trash Services, 550-1826. Atzenhofer, the Atzenhofer dealerships. Since 1926, Atzenhofer has been Victoria's dealership. They still are. They dominate the automotive world in this region. Went Services and Went Site Services. See, look at that. I got white trash on my mind.
You're all
Went
up
Services
in
for
your feels this morning.
all
You were always
feelings.
on
Whoa. Went for all your electrical needs. They're going, please, Brent, stop talking about us.
Atzenhofer,
Already did that.
but they're also sponsoring tonight's Little League Appreciation Night.
Atzenhofer,
UHV
they
game.
sponsor
And-
everything.
and big
if you
sponsor to Goliad
stand
Rodeo.
still, you'll end up with that Atzenhofer logo on your rump. Chesnick Furniture Company, Chesnick and Love. Make your house a home. Get by and see why you just always do better at Chesnick. Bobby Leon and his family serving you and yours for over 100 years.
Yep.
Palace Bingo, we mentioned them this morning. Still, this weekend, the balls will be popping. Get in there and play. USA Concrete Coatings. You want to sand it, seal it, stain it, paint it. Look at that. Michelle Wilson-Hawkins. I met Charlie Garcia, nice guy, super nice guy. And he can do all kinds of things with concrete. Torrin Bales went to the new location for Paravita yesterday, way above
Yeah, it's going to
expectations.
be nice.
Can't wait for it. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be super duper. I'm going.
And tonight's the night. Veracruz can't get in there until Monday if you don't go tonight or today.
Paravita Wellness, get in and get healthy. So we're going to be joined in a few minutes by our Congressman, Michael Cloud. Cannot emphasize how important you folks are. Your consistent listenership. I went through the list, the me wall, if you will. And from county commissioners to the county judge to mayors to the city manager to state reps to Congressman Cloud, and yesterday wrapping up the multifecta with Senator Lois Colkhorst, who was a delight. Pulled no punches. We're in a tenuous spot here because this deal is not a given deal. It's not a given that A&M is going to take over UHV. So as a result, I mean, not that I would anyway, but I don't want to say anything disparaging to UHV in case nothing happens and we end up with UHV. I want to support our local university. But Senator Colkhorst was very open. And I think she was correct when she, and I'm paraphrasing, she said that the University of Houston system had not done a great job with UHV. There's no synergy. There is no synergy between the main UHV. There's a strong connection. And you don't say anything. I don't want you to get in trouble. I mean, you work for this.
Just a disclaimer. Opinions.
Right. But there's no synergy. The University of Houston from Houston has done everything they can, in my opinion, to hurt our university. They took everybody to Sugar Land. You know, the UHV built Sugar Land, and it thrived because it's in Sugar Land. So as soon as it became like a little gym sitting in the sand, well, the mothership scooped it up, left us here. There you have it. How about UHV baseball being ranked number 8? What's their record now, sir?
22-3. NAI, that's the NAI ball poll. That's the media poll. They're still number 10 in the official coaches poll. But Little League Appreciation Night tonight.
I'm sure the brother man will be there.
All 4 Victoria Little Leagues will be taking part. So probably 2,000 people tonight down there. And that's an obvious sponsor. So get on by this afternoon, 1 o'clock, UHV softball taking on Jarvis Christian. So if you're out and about, want to get to the youth sports complex, stop on by there.
It's Commander. It's like ancient Rome, the Jaguars eating the Christians in the arena at Riverside. Wow.
Just going to talk because this don't bite your tongue in too, Ash.
There's Kendra Blake checking in, and she's a veteran. She was at UHV. She says, I think it's all about the leadership at UHV or lack thereof. Spoken like a true former employee. But it's hard to argue. I know some great people, super people. They're super. They all voted for me. Super people at UHV. There's some great ones there. No doubt about it.
Now, is Ash one of those?
I did not say that. I did not say that. But I'll tell you this.
I didn't jump.
I will tell you this.
I didn't.
There is no other department at UHV. I mean, maybe the business school, maybe, where you can say, hey, the proof's in the pudding. This man right here, if we're gonna put the blame on people and the buck stops with Ash, he's done yeoman's work. Started from dust, crafted a man, took his rib, made a woman. Just saying. Men's and women's athletics thrive at UHV, and the student athletes thrive at UHV. I've been to, seems like a dozen now, of their annual events where the students, the athletes serve. And these are true college athletes. They walk in dressed as nice as college kids are going to dress. And you go,
skinny jeans.
Man, those kids they're all ripped. Yeah. And guess what? They perform academically at a higher level. They're not taking basket weaving courses.
No.
They perform at a higher level academically than the general populace. Yeah,
they do. Our student athletes, about 34% of them end up on the dean's or president's list. That's a 3.5 or better. And our student athlete GPA is better than the student body's GPA. So I'm proud of what
they do. Which you wouldn't think, proud of what they're gone. They're gone,
Well, because the stereotype still sticks around from the 50s and 60s and 70s that athletes are just dumb jocks, right?
Right.
And it's not the case. They're the most driven students on most campuses, not just from an athletic perspective, from an academic perspective, because the reality is most of them, 99.7% of them, will never become a pro athlete.
That's right.
And if they do, they languish trying to make it. And so they've got to take it seriously.
Sharing Kendra's second thought, she says there's absolutely great people there, but lots of things were proposed by a third party who came in and looked at things before COVID, and none of those proposals were taken for change. I think that'll be the epitaph at some point for UHV, is that COVID really set them back. Because, and you heard the senator talk about it yesterday, when everybody went to
Online education,
what advantage did UHV have? So
Tam McKeeling asks, is UH the only system where the chancellor and president of the home campus are one and the same?
Probably pretty close.
That's a good question. Close. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. In the state of Texas, probably.
Yeah. Peter McNally, softball women are great at UHV. Yes, they are. Men's and women's golf has thrived at the national level.
Our soccer teams are good. All our student athletes are great. I can't say anything bad about them collectively. They don't get into trouble off the field.
Let's just have some breaking news. You got any coaches over there you need to lop the heads off of?
No, I got great coaches too.
I wanted to throw you that softball so you could say that publicly. That you got great coaches.
I have a great staff. Sam and Lynn do a good job, and we're, I'll be honest, we're overworked and understaffed
and underpaid.
That too. As is most in higher ed, unless you're a D1 athletic program.
Don't you think
and even
Chris
then,
Del Conte
and a few others.
Chris Del Conte could send you a little cheese.
Yeah. But there's the misperception or misconception, though, right? Is that A&M coming in isn't going to just throw us a boatload of cash from A&M. It's still going to be on us to do what we need to do as a freestanding university, as part of a system to fix what ails us and turn the ship around.
Yeah, I didn't understand that these are still autonomous.
Alvarez, yeah. You got the money
groups
for that?
But does this area of representation on the TAMU Board of Regents, it did at one point.
I don't know.
When Cliff Thomas was on the board.
But the area that I think there's a misperception.
John Sharp is from here,
but not every there's not. Maybe I'm misspeaking, but UH has not always had a representative from Victoria on the UH System Board of Regents.
No, but look.
And they don't specifically dive into Clear Lake or downtown to get somebody.
No. And there's no real way to say this except to just state the obvious.
And I don't know that Texas A&M's board or UT's board has somebody from representing every single campus in their system.
And there's zero advantage really to having it, because if there wasn't, we'd have more good things at UHV. But I do believe, I'm a Texas grad, so I'm looking at this beyond objectively. I think Texas A&M is the perfect fit and we've said this for years, or I have, Ash hasn't. The perfect fit for this region. Number one, huge alumni presence, huge agriculture presence, and the need for engineers. So at the end of the day, A&M is a perfect fit, more so than if the University of Texas was saying, we're going to make it, if it was an ego deal, we're going to make it UT Victoria, I would go, mistake. It's a mistake. You can't offer the region what it's begging for.
Well, Victoria, Matt Boucher pointed out yesterday that, ag is $100 million industry to this region. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And we are still an ag type of center.
Yeah. Congressman's here,
but in I don't want to say defense, but let's not forget 54 years ago when when leaders in this community wanted to bring a 4-year type of education to Victoria so that they wouldn't have to leave the region after being at VC, right?
Correct. John Paul. Yeah, you're a Texas grad who had a gang of kids go to A&M.
UH was the only one that stepped up back in the late 60s. Nobody else wanted it. So without UH, we wouldn't even be having this conversation because it wouldn't exist.
Peter McNally, Texas A&M Corpus Christi has grown with widespread community support. Now, I will throw in, I've heard mixed reviews on growth versus quality. I will tell you that. And I'll tell you also that Texas A&M main campus in College Station is now the largest school in the state. And I'm not sure that you're getting quantity without a slight sacrifice sometimes on quality. I'm not one of those people. I know my kids went there. It was hard. It was tough. So, you just have to be careful not to become a diploma factory.
Well, I mean, it's interesting from an athletics perspective. I was actually talking with the AD at Texas A&M San Antonio yesterday. He's Darnell Smith, and they're a fellow member of the Red River Conference in the NAIA. And, Jonathan Williams, no, that doesn't have to be the case. In fact, the only school that can be the shade of maroon that A&M is A&M.
Main campus.
You can't.
They won't be Aggies. They may still be Jaguars.
Yeah. It'd be no different than if we were University of Texas in Victoria. We wouldn't be Longhorns.
I'd
right?
like to see them be the Texas A&M Victoria River Rats.
Nutria?
The Nutria. Yeah. I'd like
But to give you an example, they're building a track and field facility at Texas A&M San Antonio. They have lots of land because the county there and
700 acres.
Yeah.
700 acres off of Loop 1604.
Because the city and the county realize that, gee, there's some benefit to giving them land we have.
Right.
And they've also just recently given them $10 million to build that track facility.
No doubt.
Those are
There
the
you
kind of
go.
investments.
Jay Williams, Texas A&M Victoria spicy meatballs. Tammy Keeling with a good point. Since universities function on a quantity model, tuitions, you have to grow enough to deliver services. Yeah, there's a peak right there. It's just like an airplane, right?
And
an airplane.
and there's part of the rub is since COVID, UHV has not been allowed to increase tuition. We are the lowest
You're the best
charging
value.
institution in the state of Texas. We're the best value for 4-year education in the state of Texas. There's nobody charging less.
The fighting prairie chickens. I like that as well. Tammy, by the way, is a Texas grad.
They are a shade of maroon. They can't be the exact shade of maroon. That's what I'm saying. Nobody else. And until UTRGV came along and negotiated being able to use burnt orange as their school color, no other school in the University of Texas system could use burnt orange. They can use orange. They can't use the burnt orange.
Galveston A&M gets sports pass at main campus, and I think can get an A&M ring. Each is different. I think that's because Galveston is their marine research. It's almost like being UT medical branch. You're still a Longhorn at that point.
That's where they deliver.
That's just where
it's hard. It's hard to do marine biology in
Leave it
Bryan
to the Aggies.
College Station.
Leave it to the Aggies to figure out. It's best to study marine at the water.
Yeah.
They did a good job there.
When I was
Speaking
at
of-
Washington State, the Washington State School of Pharmacy was actually in Spokane, Washington, not on because you had to have.
that's where all the weed was.
That's where all the pharmacies were. To
There
give them
you have it.
internships.
Now, look, we can't leave. I don't want the congressman to come in here and decide that we're overstaffed, Commander, and that we need to get rid of somebody. Can you imagine, Ash? Give me 5 things you've done this week. Ash would just spin in. Oh,
5 would barely get me started.
right.
Julie, I've seen the chart. Tuition and fees, UHV is the lowest in the state.
Yeah.
Second lowest behind Central Texas A&M.
Did the congressman bring anybody with him? Yes. Okay. He's not carrying a golf bag, is he? The guy with him's not carrying a golf bag, is he? It's not a caddy.
He's got the appropriations.
It's not a
bag.
caddy. Okay. Does he have the black box, the appropriations box? Yeah. You know what? I'm just gonna cut straight to you, sir, and tell you, I mean, as humbly as I can say it, thank God.
Are we
For
playing
what-
his theme song today?
Oh, wait, we're gonna play your theme song.
I have a theme song.
Yes, you do. Let me get it, folks. Hang on. Now, this is worth it.
Should we make him leave and come back in?
No,
scary.
no. This is. Are you ready? You
Take two.
okay, wait. Here's it. Okay, come in and give that a stern look. Here we go.
It's a nice guy. I said, I will see you.
No more Mr. Nice Guy.
Okay.
By Alice
Congressman
Cooper.
Cloud, Alice Cooper, giving props where it's due. We have been fascinated the last seems like months, but it's been what 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable whirlwind of
Yes.
productivity.
Yeah.
In Washington D.C. and you keep coming to the fore of that with almost Columbo-esque type inquiries in these.
Columbo. Huh?
You got, I got one more question.
Michael's not asking, not questioning. The congressman isn't questioning Columbo. He's wondering who the heck Columbo is.
Right, solid point. Well, Columbo was the
I
detective.
remember the show.
He would always go, okay, yeah, I'm sure it's nothing. And we
I
all
don't remember
knew
watching it. I
the guy
remember
was
it
guilty.
existing.
The guy was
Okay.
guilty, and he goes, "Where were you on Friday night?"
Yeah.
And he just trapped him.
Mm.
And you guys have been doing amazing things. We have several things to talk about. Ash has a whole list, a litany of things he wants to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
I just want to give you an
a lot going
attaboy.
on.
right
thank
there.
you.
I think the Dems. I mean, I think the move you guys pulled to trap the Dems, because for the last 4 years it was, we can't shut down the government. We can't shut down the government. We've got to have continuing resolutions. We've got to have continuing resolutions.
Right.
And here they were, snookered.
Why is that
Yeah.
so necessary, though? If we're making all these cuts,
Yeah.
why can't we?
That's a very good question. It's one I had too. And I was not an early adopter, shall I say, of the CR strategy, just because historically I've been opposed to them because
Convince me, because I'm not so
Yeah.
sure either. So
usually it is a kick the can down the road. And that's really the issue with from a funding standpoint, it actually holds funding levels flat usually because you're extending as opposed to a new bill, which has historically always increased spending. This one actually reduced spending 6 or 7 billion, just enough to say that, I wish it was more. It was just enough to say it reduced spending. And then, again, usually it's a kick the can down the road thing. In this case, it really isn't. And there's a couple things that work here. One is the president's ability to impound and then to introduce a rescissions package that could come very shortly. And so, we had the not State of the Union, the joint session of Congress.
We looked for you there. I did not see you there, but I thought that the Democrats were extremely rude and ignorant. Nothing new,
well,
but it was on display.
we can get into that. But the next day, 15, 20 of us or so went and met with the president, talked to the CR, what the intentions are. And then I went back Monday, the day before the vote, and I sat down with OMB and just went through, like, I need to know what the plan is long term. I need to know that the House isn't, I appreciate what the president's doing, trust what the president's doing. He's put a good team together. I wanted to make sure that the House, who hasn't always had a backbone on these sort of things, wasn't going to roll us down the line. And so really we needed to give the president time for DOJ to continue its work. This allows us, assuming it passes tonight, to pivot to FY26, begin to take the lessons we've learned from DOJ and incorporate that into the long-term budget process in a way that will restructure what the baselines are over the long term. So for me, it had to be my main thing throughout this whole season is we're going to have 4 great years. President Trump's in office. It's going to be awesome. Congress has to come behind and codify what the president's doing, though, and make sure that this is a course correction for our country, not just a 4-year reprieve. And so that's been kind of the perspective I'm approaching all these things with. And frankly, we get to the point where coming into this season, we realized we had 18 months to save the country. We all knew it. We campaigned on it. The president was elected. He certainly deserves some latitude when it comes to strategy. I think he's earned it. They're showing, literally the night before we met with him, he was, in front of Congress saying we want to get to a balanced budget. That seemed pie in the sky. It's still optimistic, but when you're looking at where we're finding savings, getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, you look at other things that we'll have to address, but are doable. It's actually in the realm of reality now, and so we need to make sure that work continues to go.
You know, I listened the other day, and a lady that has kind of jumped to the fore for the left. The Democrats right now are a rudderless ship. You know, you think Republican, you think Trump, you think Democrat, you think chaos, you think focusing on the wrong things. And Jasmine Crockett happens to be a Texan and has jumped somewhat to the fore of the mouthy left. And I just found it interesting that the other day she was screaming, this Elon Musk is dismantling the government. And she's trying to create an air of fear among the ignorant masses that, oh, by the way, the government, as you know it, is going away. Can we all agree that the government, since you've been there with not your fault, has been a failure, and dismantling it might be the most brilliant move on the planet?
Yeah, so you can say that. Most Americans that are home are going, that's exactly what we voted for.
Amen.
I mean, we realize there is a constitutional function for government, but virtually every single agency has been bloated well beyond its purpose and intent. Most are not accomplishing the objectives what they were set forth to do. Some actually working against those same stated objectives. And what we've uncovered in the ways that the federal government is literally a money laundering scheme for leftist ideals here at home and around the world. I mean, we had monies, the NGO scheme that has been set up all over the world. All these, in a sense, we would call them shell companies. You know, in the
Stacey Abrams connected to like $2 billion.
Well, some of it we're paying groups, NGOs in foreign countries to come back and lobby against the United States.
I saw that.
You know, not just terrorists that were funded.
Yeah.
You know,
So
I mean,
that
it's
brings
just,
up a question.
But Tammy Keeling has a really good question here. How many of these identified fraud prosecutions have been brought forward? You know, we keep hearing that, oh, it's fraud and abuse, but are we seeing any criminal prosecutions for the actual fraud?
We're getting to it. It is a, you know, most of these questions it's not that they're new questions. We've been asking them for a long time as the oversight committee. In the past, we've had the executive branch fighting against us and not answering the questions. And so to get the simplest answer, you know, you'd send them an investigation, they would roll their feet on it. They'd answer half the question. You'd have to follow up. It's another 4 months. Yeah. And now we have somebody on the executive branch. There was a great article that talked about really how the Doge process started. And, you know, they basically walked in the Treasury after the doors were shut, locked in, and before morning they had mapped out, you know,
what they were
all of this. Well, no, set algorithms in place that tracked the money and where all these things were going and made all these connections. And so people woke up and it was a whole new day when it came to unveiling.
How about reports earlier this week that folks from USAID were instructed to burn and shred files, right, and destroy computers? Was there any truth? I've heard this reported a few places.
I've seen that report as well. It would not surprise me. That would be par for the course. And that's the kind of thing.
Admission of guilt is what that is.
This is what we've been dealing with in our federal government. And you know, you have an elected bureaucracy that thinks they are a set aside from executive authority. Stephen Miller said it best in press conference. It might've been a couple weeks ago, seems like a month ago, but so much is going on. Right now, time seems to be working differently. But when he just basically went through the constitutional Article 2, you know, there is a president who all executive authority is invested in, right, and everything else should be delegated. And I've been speaking to this some time that we really need to right now they have what they call careers. And they have politicals in the executive branch. And the idea is that the careers are nonpartisan, which we know is absolutely not true. Correct. They drag their feet on stuff that they don't want to do. They obfuscate. They're obstructionists. They, you know, many of them, you know, and the culture isn't even a productive one. And so to understand the constitutional authority, like it takes 2 years to fire a bad employee. If you're only in office for 4,
yeah, right.
you know,
well, it always amazes me how somebody who has an issue with the VA, and I remember, and I've talked about an issue that we had years ago, and got Congressman Ron Paul's office involved. But a job won't get done unless you have to wield a hammer sometimes on certain departments to get things done. That just tells me right there, there's people that don't care. They're just collecting a paycheck. And unless there's some sort of scrutiny or leverage, you shouldn't have to get to that point as a congressman. In your office should not have to go, why the heck are we not doing our job over here at this department?
I saw your picture this week in your newsletter with the president. It made me feel good, but I wanted to tell you that here you are, and you talk about the breadth of the abyss. Here you are, a guy who every week you send out a report card on yourself to any constituent that wants it, about as transparent as you can be, of here's what we did this week. You've done that for years on your own. And yet when Elon says, hey man, just shoot me an email, half of the government employees decided not to answer that. That's the half I would fire. I would fire them.
Yeah. And to think of the vitriol that came out of, hey, name 5 things that you did last week. We've done that on our staff for years. I mean, our staff all fills it out and sends it to me, and I read it every week. And then we, like you said, we send out an email just to keep people updated. And all that was meant to do was like to be a pulse check. Like, is there anyone at the other end of this email address?
Quick question here. Tammy with a good question. She says, do you believe that there's a legal question about the administration impounding funds that have already been approved by Congress?
The idea that you could not impound was a pretty new idea that came about, I think, in the 70s. If you think that the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, George Washington understood he had the power of impoundment. We'll just say that. John Adams did, Thomas Jefferson did, and the idea that an executive could not spend less than was appropriated, it was a ridiculous idea. And it's also what's led to, in every single agency you get, and anyone in federal government knows this is trickled down into state government as well now, to where at the end of the fiscal year, every single department, every single agency is like, how do we get money out the door so we don't lose our budget next year? And you're buying, paper for the next 5 years, or stocking up on, more TVs for the office or whatever. It's just, got
to spend it or we'll lose it.
Right. Exactly. And that comes back to this idea that somehow the executive couldn't impound, which is, in my view, completely unconstitutional.
I heard one of the pundits, early morning radio, say, look, just because Congress appropriates it doesn't mean that it has to be spent. It just means it's there if it's needed. And you still have the discretion at the executive level. People have forgotten that the president is the executive. It's called the executive branch. He's the guy, hence the title. What I can't figure out is how these district judges are trying to seek their 5 minutes of fame, deciding, no, I'm putting a stay on that. The president of the United States said, this is what we're going to do. And some clown district judge in New York says, no, we're not. It's not like SCOTUS said it. It's some judge.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I mean, it's obvious that they're overextending their authority.
Yes, sir.
I mean, you can read Federal 78. I think I could probably pull it up on my phone real quick in a second, but it basically says that the judicial branch has neither the sword that the executive has and can't control the purse that Congress has. Then they have no authority over it.
Only Michael Cloud just goes, let me just whip that out on my phone. I think I've got it. In fact, here amongst my pictures, I have this copy of the Constitution.
Here's the problem.
Well, I brought it up.
As the Democrats are saying,
got his phone out.
Yeah, it's right here. The executive not only dispenses the honors, but holds the sword of the community. The legislature not only commands the purse, but prescribes the rules by which the duties and rights of every citizen are to be regulated. The judiciary, on the contrary, has no influence over the sword or the purse.
See, straight from the King James version of the Constitution.
So, the idea that you have, especially lower level judges, thinking that they have authority across federal swath of the country, and certainly can tell the executive who to fire, who not to fire, what budgets need to be. Yeah, I mean, it's just an abuse of judicial authority,
here's the crazy
which we've
thing.
seen over the last 4 years.
The Dems have said, the Supreme Court's going to hold all the power and make all the rules of this country. And yet it's been deflection from what's actually happening when it's lower level district judges that are actually starting to run the country.
Well, one of the
Or
biggest
trying to.
deals, I realized, when I was first running for this post, was the idea was we needed power has just been, and authority has been just perverted and restructured outside of the constitutional norm. So Congress has ceded its authority to the executive branch to the judiciary, and the idea that we have to get this back to where it needs to go. Staff are running things that members should be running.
Right.
The bureaucracy thinks they can overrule the executive. I mean, all these power structures have been corrupted, and we've got to get those back to the constitutional framework that it was designed to operate under.
Hats off to the president for his executive order defunding $400 million to Columbia University. And at some point, we're going to find out more about this Khalil Mahmood guy, because something's not adding up. That this gentleman came in on a visa. He was a grad student. He'd already graduated, Ash. And he ends up on the campus of Columbia University, where he's straight up a pro-Hamas rabble rouser is what he was.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know,
Pseudo-terrorist when you're
but he's
doing
got
what
a
he's
green
doing.
card. He's been here a little less than 2 years. I'm like going, dun, 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 dun. He's a plant to me from the left.
Yeah, we'll find out, but the idea that taxpayer dollars need to continue to go to this kind of thing, when you see these institutions have not turned into the.
How about this?
There used to be a
What they're
process if you were a foreigner and you married an American to get a green card and then citizenship. And I believe it was longer than, I think it was around 3 years before. I mean, you had to go through a whole
It took us
test.
7.
Yeah. And then this guy's here for less than 2 and he already has a green card. Yeah.
Torrin Bales with a great point. He says, they're concerned about who was really running the country when Biden was using auto pen to, and I know a lot of presidents use it for a lot of things, but it is a concern. We will never know who was at the helm for the last 3 years of Biden's presidency, because in all honesty, it was not Kamala. I mean, we all know that it wasn't Kamala. She was held up in a bunker, scared to go out in the sun. But shifting gears completely, do you feel that even though he's our guy and I'm consistent with what he's doing, should Elon and the Doge group come before some type of oversight committee and kind of explain what's going on? I mean, we hear the superlatives all the time.
Yeah.
But we don't hear the process. And you get people saying, I didn't vote for a bunch of 20-year-old computer nerds, blah, blah, blah. And it's being spread by the left. It's craziness. But since I'm in agreement with what they're doing, it's okay. But if I wasn't in agreement, I'd be concerned about overstep. How do we regulate, moderate, to tolerate?
Sure. There is a subcommittee on Doge, the delivering on government efficiency.
It's on his. I'm taking this. Are you kidding me? This is now mine.
Please let me finish
You
the
can't.
coffee.
That's a felony. That's a felony. for
Delivering
stealing
on
federal-
government efficiency House subcommittee. That belongs to the Carters.
That's stealing federal property.
So we had the
He's
joint.
on so many committees now, folks. He had to read his cup to figure out
Where
approach.
we had
I'm
the
going
joint
back to
session of
approach.
Congress. The next day, went over to the White House, met with the president on the CR. After that, Elon came and met with our conference. Before that, our subcommittee met with him, and we were talking about, they've gone hard and fast since they've gotten in there. And one thing too, there's been, the left wants to do everything they can to slow them down. And there's been almost this idea like they should sit down and interview every federal employee before you terminate them. And if we had all of eternity, maybe that would be the great thing to
tens
do.
and hundreds
But
of thousands.
we have 18 months to save the country. We know this is a short window of opportunity. The left is masters at playing the clock. And so the thing to do is to move fast and course correct as you go. That's really the only option to, again, make this a proper course correction. If we had an infinite clock, you could do things a little differently. But that's what we have. So we met with them and to work on making sure that we have a feedback loop that's going on. Was asked them a bunch of questions that we're getting from constituents. Also learned a lot about what they're coming into. Like one of the things they have right now, they said, do y'all know about the Chicos? We're like, the Chicos? What are those? Chief Human Capital Officers is basically what they are. And they're the main ones right now fighting in every single agency to keep DOGE from coming in and doing its work. They're also slow rolling the hires of the administration. And these are people within every single agency who are, and what's happening right now. So DOGE comes in and they find, all the millions of people who are over 115 years old in Social Security.
Isn't that crazy?
Some of them are getting checks. Some of them are not getting checks. But when you start to compare that to the small business, that database with the Small Business Administration database, you find out that there's 3,000 people who are over 120 who own businesses. Who are
By the way, they all voted in 2020.
Who are getting loans.
They all voted in 2020.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious what happens when we start to compare the voter rolls as well. But in other agencies, they're trying to do the same work, which any other business would think is common sense. It would actually be negligent not to do that.
Right. We do it every day.
And
I mean, you have a business that pays somebody. You're not paying somebody in perpetuity when they're no longer around, right? You're not just sending money out the door.
Right. And so this kind of stuff is continuing to happen. And, they want to get these databases talking to, when he wears the shirt tech support, that's really, honestly,
that's what he thinks he is.
Most of it's coming in and providing technology tools that, frankly, the government has either, I would say they haven't been able to afford, but they haven't paid for in the past. And so nobody's ever looked at.
Yeah, we've had several questions here. I'm sure it's made its way to your desk, but I know it's really not necessarily your issue, but people concerned about the potential of our Social Security office here in Victoria closing.
I think there's people on both sides of what DOGE has found, that the fact that we've $6 million when a building could have been built.
It came to light that these folks pay $25,000 a month rent over there for something they should be able to rent for no more than $5,000 or $6,000 a month.
Yeah, we've been looking at it. We've got a list of every federal building in our district, whether they're leased, whether they're owned. And we've been looking at what DOGE has been doing. As best as I can tell, when I've looked at the buildings and I've looked at the rent range within those regions, the contracts have been canceled a bit on the very upper end of whatever the rent thing was. And if the top end was, rent's going for $15 to $24 a square foot,
24,
it was getting the 24, and so I think that was the first scope at it. But there was also, again, the messaging that comes out is they're kicking them out of their office and they're leaving next month and they're having to pack up their desk. And that was not the case at all. It's like, okay, your lease expires in a year, and we're giving notice now that we might not renew it.
But it doesn't mean we're not going to have an office. It just means we're not going to necessarily be in that office for $25,000 a month.
Right. And
I've got a garage. It's a 3-car. They can have that back corner, $15,000 a month. That's
absolutely
40% savings.
I got 2 extra bedrooms.
And so, but again, there's a feedback loop that's going on. And so that goes out, they listen, make course corrections.
Well, it's really been a hot button item for Tammy Keeling, who her name hasn't changed in 30 years. And as far as I know, she's already got a Social Security card, but it's, by golly, I'm looking out for the little man. It's a hot button issue for one of your constituents. So we wanted to pass it along.
Yeah. And understandable.
Sure, absolutely.
But not worried about the person that's made $6 million off of this government deal over the last 25 years, when they could have built a building back in whenever that building opened for probably $500,000.
Yeah, could have built the building for $500,000. We paid $300,000 a month for rent.
That's crazy.
A year, $300,000 a year for rent.
Meanwhile, the federal building here is kind of falling apart. And needs some attention. So
let's go back to the budget process. We're getting close to the top of the hour, but
the
continuing resolution, Senate, from what I read this morning, expected to pass it, which is interesting. And you had Schumer come out and say, yeah, we're going to do this, or I'm going to support this. And it looks like his minions are falling in line. But how do we get back to actually passing a budget?
Yeah.
So we don't have to do the continuing resolutions and the debt ceiling extensions and all this stuff. This is what I'm assuming and understand is the end game of this continuing resolution. So how do we get there? Will the Democrats actually do that? I think there's enough House votes. It's the Senate votes that'll be the problem, right?
There's a couple of things at play. Is first of all, we have the reconciliation process that we're going to go through, and that's going to help us find savings. We only need 50 votes in the Senate for that. There's certain things you can't really throw into that pot. but there's a lot you can.
For those listening on
Oh.
Magic, if we lose you at the top of the hour, come on over to Facebook or YouTube, and we're going to keep going with this
But
conversation.
before we lose Magic, I want to
Alright.
give a special shout out to Mark Longoria for being named your chief of staff and being on the DC team. Mark has been integral in several events where I've never thought I would need to reach out to my congressman in my lifetime, but I have. And he has been so beyond helpful and so qualified to do everything that he and I have shared some big smiles over some successes that were facilitated by your office, sir. And it's important. Your accessibility and your willingness to help has been amazing. And I think the two of you together take a new level of synergy to DC. And I'm very, very excited for you and for the Longoria family.
Well, nobody works harder, and he's got a heart to serve, and it's exactly what we want emulated in everything that we're doing. So, yeah,
awesome,
yeah,
just fantastic. So, what
back to the budget. So how do we get? No, because people want to know.
Well, again, this is one of my big questions. So when I'm sitting down with OMB, I'm like, where is this going? Because I'm also sitting in the approps meetings, and some people are very excited that even in the context of Doge, we're going to increase spending just a little, and I'm like, I don't think increasing spending should even be in the conversation point at this point. But I will say that it's put us in a new context because the American people are aware and what they're, and I've seen the most moderate members in Congress right now go, there's no way I can basically they can support the kind of levels of spending that they've supported in the past. And so, one of the questions I met with OMB is like, where are we going long term? What's the budget going to look like that the president's going to present and those sorts of items. And so I'm optimistic about where that's going to go, at least be the starting point. Of course, like anything, it's going to be in fight in Congress, but it's going to be a fight on a battle space that we define, where too often we've let the establishment define what the battle space is. And then we just kind of try to,
will that battle space be more Senate compared to the House?
I'm sorry.
Will that battle space be more in the Senate than the House?
Yeah, I suspect that we'll get some pretty good conservative bills out of the House, and it'll go to the Senate, and then we'll have to negotiate and figure out how to. But
you think the budget process could actually get back to what it's supposed to be rather than what it's been for the last
I will say
decade or so?
One of the wins. And I hate to even say this, I hate to celebrate a CR because I'm so opposed.
Right.
But there was an attempt even at this point to turn that into a massive omnibus bill.
Yeah.
Up till 2 weeks ago. And so this CR in a sense killed the omnibus. Now it's going to try to resurrect. There's so many entrenched positions and people who profit off of the omnibus structure. So no doubt it will be a battle, but we are in a stronger position than ever to turn the corner on that. And so we'll have a budget that comes from the president that takes into account the waste, fraud, abuse, and those kind of things. That'll be the starting point for negotiation or for us defining the bills in the House. And this will also come after reconciliation. So we'll send pretty good conservative bills. And we started this work the last couple of years, and now we'll have the executive branch with us, helping us in this effort. And then you got to remember that the president's going to sign this in the end. So it's got to be something he's willing to sign. And so again, I'm sure it won't be perfect. I'm sure there'll be things that I wish were better even in the end process. But the point is have we turned the corner? Are we getting wins for the American people? Are we headed in the right direction? And I'm optimistic that we are.
Tell him about the guy and ask his opinion about that.
Yeah, Representative Thomas Massey never voted for CRs. We talked about it this morning. I had issues with President Trump's reaction to this and telling him he's going to be primaried. Your thoughts on that?
Thomas Massey is a good man. He is an amazing individual, and I agree with a lot of the points he's making. I do think that this is a different situation with President Trump in the White House. And frankly, if it's not, this is like our one last big chance to save the country anyway. And so there's kind of a moment, it's a put your chips on the table. But Thomas Massey, he's a great man. I'm happy and honored to serve with him in Congress.
But you're a historian. I told Ash, I said, to me, it's just politics. It's no different. He's sending a message to all of you, knowing that Massey's probably safe in his role. He's sending a message to all of you. Get in line with me. I'm not being a dictator. I need your support right now. And I told him about when we were kids, or when you were just maybe a wee lad, that LBJ was famous for getting that
He
cigarette.
wasn't even a glimmer in his parents' eyes yet.
He was born before 60. No, he wasn't. Anyway, grabbing people by the button-down collars of their shirts and pulling them out of their comfort zone into his space and talking. It was a big man talking down to them about, I need your support on this. And he did it across the aisle. And he would grab people by their collars and just, can I have your support? And he's just got that cigarette breath and coffee. And, he was famous for it. So it's really no different than Trump saying, you vote like that, you're going to get primaried. That's a message to all of you for the next vote. That's all that is to me. It's politics.
Yeah. I mean, I've never felt that kind of pressure personally. And for some of us that, I've never felt that from the president. Certainly other people have tried to do that in times past. We had the thing with the 20 and those kind of things.
It's a little mouse tonguish to me.
The thing, I don't think people realize that kind of stuff is actually a negative motivator. Right. Like, for principled people, it's like, oh yeah, well.
I've been proud of Speaker Johnson. I think he's doing a good job.
Well, we're getting stuff through legislation. We're jumping through some hurdles. Still got a long way to go, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Well, there's just, it's all been, and I want to remind you folks, none of this, we didn't have any pre-conversation with the congressman. No. It's all just quick hits. We're changing subjects like my ADD allows, and the congressman's just very forthcoming.
It facilitates.
It's squirrel. But we really appreciate your time. How long are you in the district? When do you get to go back or have to go back?
We're here for the week, actually, so that'll be nice. It's been a long time. I got to go to my kid's track meet yesterday.
I saw the sun. I see the sun on your face.
It was the first one I've been able to go through this.
Well, good, because you missed all the cold track
season,
meets.
So.
He times his schedule now. He's got his schedule. I'll be down in the spring.
Yeah, I sat down with Scalise and worked through the house schedule.
I'm going to go ahead and work with the appropriations committee during that February track meet.
Absolutely. I'll be in DC. Sorry, son.
Run fast. Be sure and stretch.
But so finally got to go to one, and so we got a lot of work to do in the district this
Your
week.
family's well? Everybody's good?
Yes, thank you. We're always grateful for so many people praying for us and texting and reaching out and so
how can people stay informed? They can get how do they get on your newsletter or email list?
Yeah, go to cloud.house.gov. You'll probably get a pop-up, hopefully only the first time you visit the website. if it works right.
Accept all cookies or not.
To sign up for our newsletter. And again, this is purely official. Campaign's a whole different thing, which you can feel free to sign up for that as well. But this is purely official. We send one email a week. You talked about it.
It's a great report.
It's report to the boss. It's the 5 things we did last week.
But they're huge.
Sometimes a little more.
They're huge things. And I love the video. I love the committee videos when you're in committee. I think it's very, very valuable for people to see the way you operate. By the way, I text Michael every now and then, and I always get the same response. Thanks. Who is this? It's always great. Thanks.
Because he takes that, he swipes it, it says delete and block, and he does.
And it still shows up.
Report spam. It never works. I don't know. Like what happens to that button?
I go press stop. Right. Send stop for me. Who is this? Well, Congressman, thank you so much for your time, and we wish you safe travels and Godspeed. And I think you're doing tremendous work, and the work you're doing will go down in history as one of the pivotal times in our nation. I think people need to get on board with what's going on. So God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Congressman.
Folks, it's the top of the hour. Did I read that the way he gave it to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
I had to make sure I said exactly what he wanted, because I want him to come back.
Yeah.
All right, folks, I hope you have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Watch out for each other on the streets. Don't forget Allen's Wrecker Service, 578-6300. Bye, folks.
My boss out the window and got fired for my last job. This football bit, but other than that, we ain't nothing, just good old boy. same. Ain't no way we'll ever change. Ain't no harm by the things we do or the trouble that we get into. Other than a while, every once in a while, we can't help it, it's just our style. Good old boys is all we'll ever be.